You know, we often talk about the Queen's magnificent tiaras or the stories behind her brooches. But her bracelets, they often flash past the cameras, almost unnoticed, and I think that's where the most personal stories are hidden. They whisper stories of her grandmother's formidable legacy, the touching, private gifts from a father who adored her, and the truly audacious gesture of a prince so in love, he transformed a priceless piece of his own heritage just to create the perfect wedding gift for his bride. These jewels weren't just worn for duty, they were worn for love, for memory. They are another one of the Queen's unwritten diaries. And today, I thought we could read it together. Before we begin, please support my channel by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you. So, where do we even begin with a collection this vast? For me, the only place to start is with her father. King George VI wasn't just her sovereign. He was famously devoted to his us four, his family. And you can really feel that deep personal affection in the bracelets he gave her, which mark the most pivotal moments of her young life. Let's start with her 18th birthday in 1944. For this milestone, he presented her with a beautiful sapphire and diamond bracelet from Cartier. And what I love about this piece is its understated elegance. It's not a huge, grand jewel. It's modest and sophisticated, featuring a series of square-cut sapphires separated by delicate diamond links. It was the perfect, age-appropriate gift for a young princess on the cusp of adulthood. And it makes so much sense when you remember that her father had a particular fondness for sapphires, so the choice of gem was clearly a thoughtful and personal one. She cherished it, and one of its most memorable appearances was years later, in 1950, at the christening of her daughter, Princess Anne. I think her choice to wear it for such a significant family occasion tells us everything about its sentimental value to her. Then came her wedding in 1947, and for this, King George VI gave her something truly magnificent. A suite of antique sapphire and diamond jewels dating to around 1850, which included a stunning necklace and a pair of matching earrings. This would become one of the most important suites in her collection, and one that she personally expanded over time. By the 1960s, the Queen decided to have the necklace shortened slightly, and with her characteristic pragmatism, she had the removed sapphire links made into this beautiful, perfectly matching bracelet. So, this bracelet wasn't a direct gift, but a creation born of her own choice. And as many of you will know, she would later complete the set by acquiring a tiara, creating the full, magnificent sapphire parure that became such a powerful part of her royal image. And whenever she wore that grand suite for major state occasions, the bracelet was right there on her wrist, completing the magnificent set that began as a wedding gift from her beloved father. And finally, in 1949, comes the third gift from her father, the baguette and brilliant bracelet. It's a beautiful design from the famed jeweler's Garrard, with 2 rows of brilliant cut diamonds bordered by a band of baguettes, all coming together in this elegant central twist. What's interesting is that this wasn't a new commission, but an existing piece that her father purchased for her. The Queen wore it frequently throughout her reign, for all sorts of occasions, from a banquet in Singapore in 1989 to a state visit to Abu Dhabi in 2010. So when you look at these 3 gifts from her father together, you see a story. A personal sapphire bracelet for her 18th birthday, the magnificent sapphire suite to mark her marriage, and this elegant diamond bracelet, a gift for a young woman who was now a wife, mother, and the heir to the throne. They are a tangible reminder of her beloved papa's affection, jewels she would cherish for the rest of her life. But if her father's gifts were a foundation of faith, the gifts from the next great love of her life, Prince Philip, tell a story of partnership, and it starts with one of the most romantic gestures in royal history. For their wedding in 1947, a young Prince Philip, who wasn't a man of great wealth, was determined to give his bride a spectacular gift, and this is where the story gets truly incredible. He turned to his mother, Princess Alice, who offered him her wedding tiara, a magnificent piece that had been a gift to her from the last Tsar and Tsarina of Russia. And what Philip did next was so audacious, so personal. He didn't just pass on a family heirloom. He had the historic Romanov tiara dismantled, taking its diamonds to create something entirely new, something from him for her. The result was the Edinburgh wedding bracelet. It's bold, geometric, set in platinum. You can almost feel his strong, modern character in its design, and it became one of her absolute favorites. She wore it consistently throughout her entire reign for some of her most significant portraits and state occasions. And then, 5 years later, another gift, perhaps even more personal. For their 5th anniversary, Philip himself designed this intricate gold bracelet, and it's like a secret code of their love story. The links are their interlocking initials, E and P. There are the White Roses of York, a nod to her first title, and right in the center, his naval badge, a reminder of the man he was. It's the story of their marriage, told in gold and gems. And I find it so touching that while the Edinburgh bracelet was a constant public companion, this anniversary piece was worn much more privately. Its rare appearances, like at their 60th wedding anniversary dinner, feel incredibly meaningful. It's almost as if some treasures were just for her, reminders of the man she loved, kept close at hand for the moments that mattered most. But if her father's gifts were a foundation of faith, the gifts from the next great love of her life, Prince Philip, tell a story of partnership, and it starts with one of the most romantic gestures in royal history. The gifts from her father and husband were about the beginning of her story, but the next crucial layer of her collection comes from the woman who literally defined the image of a modern queen, her grandmother, Queen Mary. The pieces Mary passed on tell a fascinating story of continuity, of one generation bestowing its treasures and its history upon the next. Let's start with the gifts Elizabeth received for her own wedding in 1947, when her grandmother was still by her side. The first is this absolutely stunning Cornwall Rose of York bracelet, and I just love the history here. This was one of Queen Mary's own wedding presents from 1893, a gift from the people of Cornwall, made by the jewelers Carrington. And the centerpiece is this glorious burst of color, a diamond and ruby rose of York. Inside, it even has an inscription that reads, "From Cornwall, one and all, July 6th, 1893. It's like a secret message from the past, and Elizabeth cherished it. It became one of her most worn ruby pieces, a true stalwart of her collection for over 70 years. Also, for her wedding, Mary gave her these gorgeous Indian bangles. Again, these were originally a wedding gift to Mary herself, presented by the Bombay Presidency in 1893. They are just so incredibly stylish. 2 identical bangles with finely engraved gold sides and studded with 39 brilliant cut diamonds each. But here's the clever part, a wonderful bit of engineering. They have a hidden hinge that allows them to be snapped together to form one single, wide, statement-making cuff. We see the young Princess Elizabeth wearing them, for instance, at a formal dinner in Norway in 1951. They look so glamorous on her, a touch of exoticism that speaks to her grandmother's love for India and its artistry. These were treasures passed from one bride to another, a personal blessing from grandmother to granddaughter. But the story of Mary's legacy was about to take on a monumental new chapter. For in 1953, with Mary's passing, the very heart of her legendary collection would be entrusted to the new queen, defining her own jewelry box for the rest of her life. And among the treasures were some of the most chic, stylish pieces in her entire collection. In her book, Angela Kelly mentions a fabulous set of 4 Art Deco bracelets that Queen Mary left to her granddaughter. One with a ruby, one with an emerald, one with a sapphire, and one with an aquamarine. We're lucky to have photographs of them all together, and they are just a masterclass in 1920s glamour. The absolute star of this set, the one that became a true workhorse for the Queen, was the Art Deco ruby and diamond bracelet. It's a perfect symphony of geometric links, glittering with brilliant and baguette-cut diamonds, and punctuated by these 4 incredibly rich, square-cut rubies. It was a piece she relied on for decades, for some of the grandest state occasions. We see it at the state banquet for President Trump in 2019. She wore it during her historic visit to China in 1986, and it appeared at countless galas and Commonwealth dinners over the years. It was her go-to ruby bracelet, a reliable and timeless classic. From that absolute favorite, we move to one of its more elusive sisters. The emerald bracelet, with its gorgeous square-cut emerald and intricate scrolling diamond work, wasn't a frequent guest in her jewelry rotation, which makes each sighting all the more exciting. Among its known appearances, we saw it back in 1973 for a film premiere, where she styled it perfectly, pairing it with the Cambridge emerald necklace and earrings and the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. It reappeared decades later at the 2015 Commonwealth dinner in Malta, where the Queen made her famously witty remark to Justin Trudeau, saying he'd made her feel so old by noting she'd known 12 Canadian prime ministers. Then there's its counterpart, the beautiful aquamarine bracelet. Again, this was a piece she seemed to reserve for very select, often more personal occasions. One of its most notable appearances was in 2010, when she wore it for the 70th birthday party of her cousin and great friend King Constantine of Greece. And completing the set is this gorgeous sapphire bracelet with that beautiful central stone. This one is perhaps the most mysterious of the four, as I have not been able to find any photographs of her wearing it. But seeing them all together, you get a sense of the incredible versatility Queen Mary's collection gave her. A perfect, stylish Art Deco piece for every occasion and every color. But Queen Mary's genius wasn't just in her eye for impeccable style, it was also in her love for clever, versatile jewelry. And there's no better example of this than the piece we now know as Queen Mary's diamond link bracelets. This wasn't just one jewel, it was a brilliant system. Gerard created two incredible diamond chain link bracelets for her in the early 1930s in this really chic, subdued modernist design. But the true ingenuity was in the clasp, a separate diamond brooch centered on a massive diamond that had been a gift to Mary from the South African diamond industry in 1933. The two bracelets and the brooch could be joined together to form a spectacular choker. Queen Mary wore it both ways. She was often pictured in the grand choker for major state occasions in the 1930s, like her husband's Silver Jubilee, but she also wore the pieces as bracelets. When Elizabeth inherited this convertible jewel in 1953, she made a very clear choice. While she wasn't a great fan of chokers herself, she clearly loved the design. For her entire reign, she wore one of the bracelets as a single, elegant piece. It became a true staple of her collection, a versatile and timeless diamond jewel that you would often see on her wrist for countless galas and banquets over the decades, usually balanced with her evening watch on the other arm. But knowing that these two bracelets can be reassembled into that magnificent choker, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? I can't help but think how incredible that sleek, modernist choker would look today. On a long, elegant neck like the Princess of Wales's. It could be absolutely stunning. Wouldn't you love to see it worn as a choker once again? And now for a piece that comes with one of the most famous backstories in the entire royal collection, the Cambridge Emeralds bracelet. The bracelet itself is a classic design, featuring 3 of the magnificent Cambridge emeralds set amongst diamonds. It was created by Queen Mary as part of her spectacular Delhi Durbar parure in 1911. Queen Elizabeth would wear it as part of that grand suite, often pairing it with the emerald setting of the Vladimir tiara and the spectacular Delhi Durbar necklace for some of her most formal state occasions. But what makes this bracelet so fascinating is the incredible history of the very stones it holds. Those emeralds were famously won in a charity lottery by Queen Mary's grandmother. They were later inherited by Mary's brother, who scandalously left them to his mistress. It was only Mary's quick intervention, buying them back for a small fortune, that kept these historic gems in the royal family. As part of the Grand Delhi Durbar parure, this wasn't an everyday piece for Queen Elizabeth. She reserved it for very important state occasions that called for the full, magnificent splendor of the family's emeralds. You would typically see it when she wore the emerald setting of the Vladimir tiara and the spectacular Delhi Durbar necklace, completing a suite that was simply breathtaking in its scale and historic importance. And from that piece of high drama and historic splendor, we move to another of Queen Mary's treasures, one that speaks to pure, classic royal elegance. It's this beautiful 5-row pearl bracelet. Pearls, of course, were a staple for both Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth. But what makes this piece so special is the clasp. It's a gorgeous, glittering diamond flower. And right in the very center, as a final surprising touch of warmth and sparkle, is a single, beautiful yellow diamond. It's a quiet detail, one you might miss at first glance, but it elevates the entire piece, making it both timeless and unique. It's another example of Queen Mary's impeccable taste, a classic pearl bracelet with a very personal, distinctive twist. So that's 9 incredible bracelets from her grandmother's will. But there's a 10th piece from that same inheritance. Another pearl and diamond treasure. But this one comes with a puzzle. We'll get back to that mystery a little later. If the jewels from Queen Mary speak to the grand historic weight of the monarchy, the bracelets Elizabeth received from her mother tell a different story. It's a story of modern elegance, personal style, and even a few lingering mysteries. The first piece is one we've seen quite a bit in recent years on the Princess of Wales, but it has a much longer history. It's the stunning diamond quatrefoil bracelet. This is such a substantial, beautifully made jewel. It's a large, flexible band with this intricate pattern featuring a distinctive quatrefoil, or 4-leafed design. What's so fascinating about this piece is that its origins are a complete mystery. We know it belonged to the Queen Mother, and the earliest photographs of her wearing it date back to the 1950s, but we have no idea where she acquired it. After the Queen Mother's death in 2002, the bracelet passed to Elizabeth, who wore it for very formal occasions, like the state opening of Parliament in 2008 and 2010. And what I love is that on one of those occasions, she very cleverly paired it with Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee necklace. The magnificent central element of that necklace is also a crowned quatrefoil, so she ingeniously created her own little matching set, or demi-parure. Then we have one of the most romantic and ingenious sets in the entire royal collection, the Queen Mother's Cartier bracelets. This story is just wonderful. Between 1923 and 1925, the newlywed Duke of York, the future King George VI, gifted his wife a set of 5 exquisite Art Deco bracelets from Cartier for her birthdays and at Christmas. There's one with sapphires, one with rubies, one with emeralds, and 2 all-diamond bracelets. Early portraits show the Duchess of York wearing all 5 stacked together on one arm, an incredibly glamorous and fashionable statement for the 1920s. But here is the brilliant part. After receiving all 5 bracelets, she also acquired a special bandeau mount from Cartier. This frame allowed 3 of the bracelets to be assembled and worn together as a stunning bandeau-style tiara, which she did in the 20s and 30s. When the bracelets passed to Queen Elizabeth, she never wore them as a tiara. Instead, she wore them as they were originally intended, as bracelets. But unlike her mother, she never wore all 5 at once. She preferred a more understated look, usually choosing to wear 1 or 2 at a time, stacking them in all sorts of different combinations over the decades. They were clearly a beloved and versatile part of her collection, a constant, sparkling reminder of the love between her parents. Beyond the incredible legacy she inherited, Queen Elizabeth's own reign saw her collection grow with spectacular gifts from across the globe. These weren't just tokens of friendship. They were grand diplomatic gestures, symbols of her status as a world leader. But what I find so compelling is how she interacted with these gifts. She wasn't just a passive recipient, she was an active curator, and she wasn't afraid to make these grand jewels truly her own. A perfect first example is her South African suite. The story starts with a magnificent diamond necklace, given to her on her 21st birthday in 1947 by the government and people of South Africa. It originally consisted of 21 large, graduated diamonds, one for each year of her life. But just 5 years later, in 1952, the newly crowned queen decided the necklace was a bit too long for the fashionable style of the day, so she had it shortened to 15 stones. And with her characteristic practicality, she didn't let the leftover diamonds go to waste. Those 6 beautiful stones were set into a new, perfectly matching bracelet. So this stunning diamond bracelet wasn't a direct gift, but rather a creation born of her own choice, a testament to her pragmatic approach to even the most sentimental jewels. Then there's the story of her famous Brazilian aquamarine parure. This suite was built over time, starting with a coronation gift in 1953 from the president and people of Brazil. A stunning necklace and a pair of earrings featuring enormous, perfectly matched aquamarines that reportedly took jewelers a year to find. The queen was so taken with them that she decided it needed to be a full parure. In 1957, she personally commissioned Gerard to create a matching tiara. The story continued a year later when the Brazilian government presented her with the final pieces, a magnificent brooch and this incredible bracelet made of 7 large oblong aquamarines. And once again, we see her practical side. She later had the bracelet shortened to 5 stones, likely to make it more comfortable to wear. It's a wonderful example of a collection growing through a combination of diplomatic generosity and the Queen's own personal vision. And if the Brazilian suite was a slow build, the Dubai Sapphire suite was an explosion of glamour. In 1979, during a tour of the Gulf states, Sheikh Rashid of Dubai presented her with this breathtaking suite from Asprey. The reports from the time say she literally exclaimed in amazement when she saw it. The original gift was a necklace of diamond loops and massive sapphires, plus enormous coordinating earrings and a ring. But again, as magnificent as it was, the queen had her own ideas. She had the necklace shortened and cleverly had a new, smaller pair of earrings made from the leftover sapphire loops. Then she took the original enormous earrings and the sapphire cluster from the ring and had them completely reimagined into a single spectacular bracelet. It was a masterful transformation, taking a grand gift and tailoring it perfectly to her own taste. And that brings us to a final, more mysterious suite, the Sapphire Tassel Demi-Parure. This includes a necklace with a central knot and a tassel of diamonds and sapphires, along with matching earrings and a beautiful bracelet. Unlike the others, its exact origins are a mystery. It's thought to be another Middle Eastern gift, possibly from a Saudi state visit, but we don't know for sure. It wasn't one of her most worn suites, but its appearances at important events, like the Saudi state banquet, give us a clue to its diplomatic roots. It remains one of those quieter, but no less beautiful symbols of her long reign on the world stage. And now, as we near the end of our journey, there is one bracelet that we simply cannot overlook. It stands apart, not because of a mysterious origin, but because of its immense historical weight. I'm talking about Queen Victoria's diamond bracelet. This is one of the foundational jewels of the modern royal collection. Designated as an heirloom of the crown, it was made for the young Queen Victoria way back in 1838. You can see it prominently in her famous golden and diamond jubilee portraits. It passed from queen to queen and was worn by Queen Alexandra, Queen Mary, and then by Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. After the death of King George VI in 1952, the Queen Mother was allowed to retain several of the heirlooms of the crown for her lifetime. But for some reason, this bracelet seems to have been returned to the new queen relatively early on, at some point in the 1960s. We see Elizabeth wearing it for those iconic Cecil Beaton portraits in 1968. While it may not have been one of her most worn favorites like some of her other bracelets, she did wear it frequently over the decades for formal events. And while some pieces, like Victoria's bracelet, carry the full weight of royal history, the Queen's collection also held its own private puzzles. And this brings us to one of my favorite mysteries, the modern ruby and diamond bracelet. It just sort of appears in photographs around the early 1960s. It has a very different feel from her other jewels. It's more modern, with these distinctive oval plaques of rubies surrounded by brilliant cut diamonds. But unlike almost every other major piece, its origins are a complete mystery. We don't know if it was a gift or a private purchase, and yet it clearly became a favorite. She wore it frequently over the decades, often pairing it with her grander ruby jewels. It's a quiet reminder that for all the public scrutiny, Queen Elizabeth's private collection and her personal story still holds its secrets. All right, remember that mystery I teased from Queen Mary's inheritance? The 10th bracelet? Well, it's time to pull on our detective gloves because this is one of the most fascinating puzzles in the Queen's collection, the case of the pearl lattice bracelet. Here's the thing. We have several photographs of Queen Elizabeth taken over the years, where she is wearing a beautiful pearl and diamond lattice-style bracelet. For a long time, its identity was a subject of debate. The respected jewelry author Leslie Field states that in at least one of these photographs, the Queen is wearing a bracelet that belonged to Princess Marie-Louise, Queen Victoria's granddaughter, which Elizabeth inherited after her death. However, some jewelry lovers have a different theory, and this is where it gets really interesting. There is a clearer color photograph of the Queen wearing a similar bracelet, and here you can really see the detail. In this photo, many believe we're looking at Queen Mary's magnificent City of London choker worn on the wrist. Let's look at the clues together. If we look at the old photographs of Princess Marie-Louise wearing her choker, it can seem like the diamonds in the design are noticeably smaller than the pearls. But on Queen Mary's choker, the brilliant cut diamonds were very large, almost the same size as the pearls, creating an incredibly opulent, glittering effect. The bracelet in that color photograph certainly seems to match that bolder description. I have to admit, I personally find it very difficult to definitively identify which one she's wearing in each case. It's also entirely possible that we're not looking at an either-or situation. After all, Queen Elizabeth inherited both pieces. Could it be that she wore them both at different times? It remains a fascinating puzzle, and one that reminds us that even with all we know, the royal jewelry box doesn't give up all its secrets easily. And so, that is her unwritten diary. From the touching gifts of a devoted father and husband, to the magnificent history-laden treasures from her grandmother, and the spectacular diplomatic gifts from around the world, each bracelet tells its own chapter. I would absolutely love to know what you think. Which of these incredible pieces is your personal favorite? And is there one you're hoping to see make a reappearance, perhaps on the Princess of Wales or Queen Camilla? Please do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If you enjoy uncovering the stories hidden within these royal jewels, I would be so honored if you would subscribe to the channel for more.